Can you be too independent? Most people would say no. Independence is good, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. If you're watching this, there's a good chance you've mastered being alone. You pride yourself on not burdening others. You never ask for help. You handle your own problems. Congratulations, you've also mastered being lonely. Because here's what nobody tells you. Extreme independence isn't strength. It's a defense mechanism, and it's quietly destroying every meaningful relationship you could have. Let me explain exactly how this happens. Look, I get it. You've been hurt before. Maybe someone you trusted let you down. Maybe you grew up learning that depending on others meant weakness. So you built this armor. You became the person who never asks for help, never shows vulnerability, never admits they're struggling. And for a while, it probably worked. But here's what's really happening. Every time someone tries to get close to you, you push them away. Not obviously, but subtly. You keep conversations surface level. You refuse to share your real feelings. You solve all your problems alone, even when someone genuinely wants to help. You think this makes you strong and stable. But to everyone around you, you seem cold, distant, unreachable. Here's what I'm going to give you today. I'm going to show you exactly how extreme independence develops, why it feels so safe, but actually ruins relationships, and most importantly, how to break free from this pattern without becoming needy or losing yourself. This isn't about becoming dependent on others. It's about becoming interdependent, which is what healthy relationships actually look like. I spent over 40 years as a psychologist helping people with this exact issue. I developed rational emotive behavior therapy specifically to address these irrational beliefs we carry around. And one of the most damaging irrational beliefs, that needing people makes you weak. By the end of this video, you'll understand the difference between healthy independence and destructive isolation. You'll know exactly which behaviors are pushing people away. And you'll have practical tools to start connecting with others in ways that feel authentic and safe. No psychobabble, no fluff, just straight talk about how to stop sabotaging your own happiness. So if you're ready to stop pretending you don't need anyone and start building relationships that actually fulfill you, stay with me. Let's start with something important. Extreme independence doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's not like you wake up one day and decide to shut everyone out. No, this pattern develops over time, usually in response to real pain. And here's the thing. When it first develops, it makes perfect sense. It's actually a smart survival strategy. The problem is it outlives its usefulness, and you keep using it long after it stops serving you. For a lot of people, this starts in childhood. Maybe you grew up in a home where your needs weren't consistently met. Maybe your parents were physically there, but emotionally absent. Maybe they were dealing with addiction, mental illness, or their own trauma. Or maybe they were just overwhelmed and didn't have the capacity to show up for you the way you needed. When you're a kid and you can't count on the adults around you, you learn something crucial. I can only rely on myself. And at that age, this conclusion makes total sense. If asking for help leads to disappointment or rejection or being ignored, you stop asking. You figure out how to take care of yourself. You become self-sufficient because you have to be. I had a client once, let's call her Sarah, whose mother struggled with alcoholism. Some nights her mom would be loving and attentive. Other nights, she'd be passed out on the couch. Sarah never knew which version she'd get. So by the time she was 8 years old, she'd learned to make her own meals, get herself to school, and handle her problems alone. She stopped telling her mom when she was scared or hurt because it was a coin flip whether she'd get comfort or nothing at all. That little girl made a perfectly rational decision given her circumstances. But here's what happened. She carried that decision into adulthood. At 35, Sarah was still operating from the same belief. I can only count on myself. Even though she now had friends, partners, and colleagues who were reliable, she couldn't let them in. The wall she'd built at 8 years old was still standing at 35. Now, maybe your childhood was fine. Maybe you didn't develop this pattern until later. Because here's the other common origin story: betrayal in adulthood. You trusted someone deeply, a partner, a best friend, a family member, and they violated that trust in a significant way. Maybe your spouse cheated. Maybe your business partner screwed you over. Maybe your best friend spread your secrets. The pain of that betrayal is so intense that you make a vow: never again. You decide that the problem wasn't just that person. The problem was that you were vulnerable in the first place. So you restructure your entire personality around never being that exposed again. You become the fortress, the person who doesn't need anyone. I worked with a guy, let's call him Mike, whose wife had an affair after 12 years of marriage. He was devastated. But instead of processing that grief, instead of eventually opening his heart again, he shut down completely. He told me, "I'll never be that vulnerable fool again." He dated after the divorce, but he never let anyone really in. He kept every relationship surface level. His armor was so thick that nobody could get close enough to hurt him. Problem was, nobody could get close enough to love him either. And here's where society makes this whole thing worse. We live in a culture that glorifies independence. Especially in America, we worship the rugged individualist, the self-made man, the person who pulls themselves up by their bootstraps. We celebrate not needing anyone. We turn it into a virtue. Think about the movies you watch. The heroes are almost always lone wolves. They don't trust anyone. They work alone. The message is clear. Dependence is weakness, and real strength means needing nobody. This cultural story reinforces the exact pattern that's destroying your relationships. And if you're a man, this message is even stronger. Men are taught from childhood that vulnerability equals weakness. Real men don't cry. Real men don't ask for help. Real men handle their problems alone. So you grow up thinking that your value as a man is directly tied to how little you need other people. Here's what happens over time. This extreme independence stops being just something you do. It becomes who you are. Your entire identity gets wrapped up in being the strong one, the independent one, the person who has it all together. People praise you for it. They say things like, "Wow, you're so strong," or "I don't know how you do it all alone." And that positive feedback locks the pattern in place. Asking for help starts to feel like losing yourself. Because if you're not the independent one, then who are you? If you admit you're struggling, if you show vulnerability, it feels like your whole identity is crumbling. So you double down. You become even more isolated, even more self-reliant. You build the walls higher. Think about it like this. Imagine you build a fortress to keep invaders out. The fortress worked. It kept you safe. But now you're inside the fortress and you're realizing that you're not just safe. You're trapped. The very thing that protected you is now imprisoning you. But you've lived in this fortress for so long that you don't remember how to live outside of it. The walls feel like part of you now. That's what extreme independence does. It starts as protection and it becomes a prison. And the worst part? You don't even realize you're locked up. You think the fortress is your strength. You think the walls are keeping you safe. You don't see that they're actually keeping you alone. Now, here's where it gets interesting. These walls you built, they worked. For a while. They protected you from getting hurt again. But protection always comes at a cost. And the cost of extreme independence is higher than you think. Let me show you what you're actually sacrificing. First, let's talk about intimacy. Real intimacy, the kind where someone actually knows you, not just the version of you that you show the world. That requires vulnerability. It requires letting someone see the parts of you that aren't polished and perfect. The parts that are scared or confused or struggling. But extreme independence forbids vulnerability. So what happens? You end up in relationships where nobody really knows you. Your partner knows your schedule, your preferences, your routines. But they don't know your fears. They don't know your dreams. They don't know what keeps you up at night or what makes you feel alive. They know the surface, but not the substance. And here's the brutal truth that gets old. People don't leave relationships because of conflict or disagreement. They leave because they feel shut out. They leave because they're tired of trying to connect with someone who won't let them in. They leave because being with someone who won't be vulnerable feels lonelier than being actually alone. I had a couple come to see me once. They'd been together for 7 years. She said, "I love him, but I don't know him. I've tried everything to get closer, and he just won't let me in. I feel like I'm in a relationship by myself." He sat there, confused, thinking he was doing everything right. He had a job. He was faithful. He helped around the house. What more did she want? What she wanted was for him to actually share himself with her. And he didn't even know how. They ended up divorcing. Not because of anything dramatic, just because she couldn't spend the rest of her life with someone who treated intimacy like a threat. Here's the loneliest feeling in the world: being in a relationship where you can't be yourself, where you have to maintain the armor even with the person who's supposed to be closest to you. You might technically be in a relationship, but you're functionally alone. And that kind of loneliness is worse than actual solitude. Second cost: you miss out on support. When life gets hard, and it will get hard, you face it completely alone. People around you want to help. They offer to help, but you refuse. You say, "I'm fine. I've got it." And they eventually stop offering. You tell yourself you're being strong. Really, you're just burning yourself out. Because life is hard, and handling everything alone is exhausting. Meanwhile, other people are building networks of mutual support. They ask for help when they need it. They receive support without shame. And when hard times come, they have people to lean on. You lose your job, and you tell no one. You struggle for months, burning through savings, stressed out of your mind. Your friends would have helped, given you leads, made introductions, offered support. But you didn't tell them because you thought asking for help made you weak. So you suffered unnecessarily. Or you go through a health crisis, and you handle all the appointments, all the fear, all the uncertainty by yourself. People around you would have driven you to appointments, sat with you in waiting rooms, brought you meals. But you didn't let them because you didn't want to be a burden. So you went through one of the hardest experiences of your life completely alone. This is insane. We're social creatures. We evolved to support each other. Going through life alone isn't strength. It's self-imposed hardship. Third cost: your joy gets dampened. Good things are less meaningful when you experience them alone. You achieve a goal, and there's nobody to celebrate with. You have a breakthrough, and there's nobody to share it with. You experience something amazing, and you can't fully enjoy it because you're experiencing it in isolation. Research actually shows this. Shared positive experiences amplify happiness. When you share joy with someone else, both of you experience more joy than you would individually. It's not just addition, it's multiplication. But extreme independence cuts you off from that multiplication effect. You get a promotion at work. It's something you've worked toward for years. But when it happens, you celebrate alone. Maybe you pour yourself a drink, sit in your apartment, and think, "I did it." But there's this emptiness, because the achievement feels hollow when there's nobody to share it with. You can't even fully believe it's real because you haven't shared it with anyone. Meanwhile, someone else gets a promotion and immediately calls their partner, their parents, their friends. They go out to dinner. People are genuinely excited for them. They get to tell the story, relive the moment, bask in the shared joy. Their happiness is amplified by connection. You get the same promotion, but you experience a fraction of the joy. And you don't even realize what you're missing because you've been alone for so long that you think this is just how life is. Fourth cost: you stop growing. We grow through relationships. We grow through feedback, through being challenged, through seeing ourselves reflected in others' eyes. But extreme independence cuts you off from all of that. Without honest input from others, you develop blind spots. You keep making the same mistakes and don't even know it. You have patterns that are obvious to everyone around you, but nobody's close enough to tell you about them. So you stay stuck. You think you're self-sufficient, but you're actually stagnant. You're not evolving because evolution requires interaction. You're like a tree trying to grow in isolation without any other trees around. And research on forests shows that isolated trees are weaker, less resilient, and more likely to fall during storms. Trees that are connected, their roots intertwined underground, sharing resources, those are the ones that survive. You're not designed to stand alone. You are designed to be part of a forest. So if extreme independence costs this much, why the hell do we keep doing it? That's the million-dollar question. And the answer comes down to one thing: irrational beliefs. We carry around ideas about independence, strength, and vulnerability that feel true but are actually destroying us. Let me break down the exact thoughts that are keeping you stuck. Irrational belief number 1. Needing people makes me weak. This is the foundational lie. This is the core belief that supports the entire fortress of extreme independence. And it's complete garbage. Here's reality. Humans are social mammals. We evolved in tribes. We survived because we cooperated. Your brain is literally wired for connection. Loneliness triggers the same brain regions as physical pain because, from an evolutionary perspective, being separated from the tribe was a death sentence. Strength isn't refusing to need people. Strength is being secure enough in yourself that you can admit you need others. Weakness is hiding behind walls because you're too scared to be vulnerable. Weakness is pretending you're fine when you're falling apart. Think about it this way. If I asked you to name the strongest, most impressive people in history, who would you think of? Leaders, warriors, innovators. Now let me tell you something about all of them. They had deep relationships. They had advisors, friends, partners. They relied on others. They built teams. They asked for help. The strongest warriors in history fought in units, not alone. They depended on the people next to them. That interdependence is what made them strong, not what made them weak. The belief that needing people makes you weak is not based on reality. It's based on fear. And when you're making decisions based on fear instead of reality, you're going to make bad decisions. Irrational belief number 2. If I let people in, they'll hurt me. This is prediction based on past pain, not present reality. Yes, you got hurt before, maybe more than once. And that pain was real and valid. But now you're using that past pain to predict the future with absolute certainty. Let me be clear, some people might hurt you. That's the risk of being human. Relationships come with risk. There's no way around that. But here's what you're not calculating. You're already hurting. Right now. From loneliness. From isolation. You're trading the certainty of current pain for the possibility of future pain. That's not a good trade. And here's the thing about this belief. It's self-fulfilling. When you believe people will hurt you, you keep everyone at a distance. You don't let anyone get close enough to prove you wrong. So your belief never gets challenged. You stay in this bubble where your prediction seems true because you've engineered your life to confirm it. But what if you flip the belief? What if instead of "if I let people in, they'll hurt me," you said, "some people might hurt me, and some people will enrich my life immeasurably"? That's a more accurate statement. It acknowledges risk without making catastrophic predictions. Ask yourself this. Has your isolation actually prevented all pain? Or has it just prevented joy? Because from where I'm sitting, you're in pain either way. One path offers pain with no possibility of connection. The other path offers risk with the possibility of love, support, and meaning. Which one is actually the better choice? Irrational belief number 3. I should be able to handle everything myself. The word should. In rational emotive behavior therapy, we call these musts and shoulds absolute demands. And they're almost always irrational. Where's the evidence that you should be able to handle everything yourself? Where's the law of the universe that says humans must be completely self-sufficient? There isn't one. You made it up. Or society made it up and you internalized it. Look at all of human achievement. Look at what we've built, what we've discovered, what we've created. None of it happened alone. All of it happened through cooperation, through people working together, sharing knowledge, supporting each other. You sitting here thinking you should handle everything alone is like a single person thinking they should be able to build a skyscraper by themselves. It's absurd, but it doesn't feel absurd to you because you believed it for so long. A rational alternative? I can handle some things alone, and I'm wise enough to seek help with other things. That's not weakness. That's intelligence. Let me ask you something. If someone you love was diagnosed with cancer, would you tell them they should handle treatment alone? Would you tell them that seeing doctors, accepting help from friends, leaning on family, that all of that makes them weak? Of course not. You tell them to get all the support they can. So why do you hold yourself to a different standard? Why is it okay for others to need help, but not okay for you? Irrational belief number 4. Asking for help means I'm a burden. This belief assumes that your needs are inherently problematic, that your existence and your struggles are an imposition on others. And that's just not true. Here's what's actually true. Most people want to help those they care about. Helping others gives people meaning and purpose. It makes them feel valued and needed. When you refuse help, you're not saving people from burden. You're denying them the opportunity to matter to you. Reciprocity is what builds relationships. Relationships aren't built on one person always giving and one person always receiving. They're built on mutual exchange. Sometimes you give, sometimes you receive. That's how connection deepens. When you never ask for help, when you never let anyone give to you, you create a one-sided relationship. And those relationships don't last. Because the other person eventually feels like you don't trust them, don't need them, don't value them enough to let them in. Think about it from their perspective. Imagine you have a friend who you care about deeply. You do anything for them, but they never ask you for anything. They never share when they're struggling. They never let you support them. How would that make you feel? Probably pretty disconnected. You'd wonder if they actually valued your friendship. That's what you're doing to people when you refuse to ever be on the receiving end. You're pushing them away while telling yourself you're being considerate. Ask yourself, when someone you love asks you for help, do you see them as a burden? Probably not. You probably feel honored that they trust you enough to ask. So why do you assume people see you as a burden when you do the same thing? Irrational belief number 5. Showing emotion means losing control. This belief confuses emotional expression with emotional dysregulation. They're not the same thing. Showing emotion is healthy communication. It's how humans connect. It's how we signal to each other what we need and how we're doing. Crying doesn't mean you're out of control. It means you're processing pain. Expressing fear doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. Suppressing emotion, on the other hand, leads to problems. When you constantly suppress what you feel, it doesn't disappear. It builds up, and eventually it comes out, either as an explosion where you lose control in a big way, or as an implosion where you break down physically or mentally. The control you think you have by suppressing emotion isn't control. It's tyranny. You're tyrannizing yourself, forcing yourself to pretend you don't feel what you actually feel. And that takes enormous energy. Energy you could be using for literally anything else. A rational alternative. I can express emotions appropriately and remain in control. You can cry and still be in control. You can admit you're scared and still be handling the situation. Emotional expression and emotional regulation aren't opposites. They're complementary. Let me tell you about a guy I worked with. He hadn't cried in 17 years. 17 years. He prided himself on it. He thought it meant he was strong, that he had control over his emotions. Then one day, his dog died. Just his dog. And he completely fell apart. Couldn't stop crying for hours. Couldn't function for days. You know why? Because he'd been suppressing emotion for 17 years, and all of it came flooding out over this one loss. If he'd been allowing himself to feel and express emotion all along, his dog's death would have been sad, but manageable. Instead, it was catastrophic because it was carrying the weight of 17 years of unfelt grief. That's not control. That's a dam waiting to break. Okay, so now you see the lies you've been believing. But knowing something intellectually and changing it emotionally are two different things. You might be thinking, this all makes sense, but I still feel like I need my walls. Good, that's honest. So let's talk about how to actually dismantle these beliefs and build something better. Because understanding the problem isn't enough. You need a practical system for change. Let me give you a framework. This isn't about swinging from extreme independence to neediness. That's just trading one problem for another. We're aiming for something different, interdependence. And most people don't even know what that looks like, so let me break it down. There are 3 basic relationship styles. First, there's dependence. This is, I can't function without you. This is losing yourself in relationships, needing constant reassurance, falling apart when alone. This is what you're afraid of becoming if you open up. And I get that fear. Second, there's independence. This is where you are now. I don't need anyone. Refusing genuine connection, handling everything alone, keeping everyone at arm's length. This feels safe, but it's actually just isolation with better PR. Third, there's interdependence. This is, I can stand alone and I choose to walk with you. This is being a whole person who chooses connection, not someone who needs it to survive. This is the goal. In interdependence, you can handle life on your own if you have to, but you don't feel like you have to. You're comfortable asking for help when it makes sense. You share your inner world while maintaining boundaries. You can be vulnerable without being needy. You receive support without shame and give support without resentment. You maintain your identity. Here's an example. You have a really rough day at work. Independence. You'd call your partner crying, needing them to fix your feelings, unable to cope without their immediate intervention. In independence, you'd come home and say fine when asked how your day was, handling all the stress alone. In interdependence, you'd come home and say, today was really hard. Can we talk about it? You'd share what happened, receive comfort, and then you'd both move on. You shared the burden without dumping it entirely on someone else. See the difference? Interdependence is sharing from wholeness, not from emptiness. It's, I'm okay, and I'd like your support, not, I'm not okay unless you fix me. Here's what you need to understand. Vulnerability from a place of strength is not neediness. When you're secure in yourself, and you choose to share something vulnerable, that's courage. That's intimacy. That's connection. Neediness is when you're not secure in yourself, and you require someone else to make you feel whole. The fear is, if I open up, I'll become dependent. I'll lose myself. But that only happens if you're opening up from a place of insecurity. If you're opening up from a place of, I'm a complete person and I'm choosing to share myself with you, that's interdependence. You're not losing yourself. You're inviting someone to know yourself. And yes, boundaries still exist. Vulnerability doesn't mean telling everyone everything. It doesn't mean having no limits. You can be open and still protect yourself. You can share deeply with some people and keep things surface level with others. The goal is selective vulnerability, not indiscriminate oversharing. Think about it like building a bridge. Interdependence is building bridges to others while standing on your own solid ground. You're not dissolving into someone else. You're creating connection points while maintaining your foundation. Now let me give you the practical benefits, because this isn't just about avoiding loneliness. Interdependence actually makes your life better in measurable ways. You get richer, more meaningful relationships. People actually know you, and you know them. There's depth and authenticity instead of surface-level pleasantness. You get actual emotional support during hard times. When crisis hits, you don't face it alone. You have people who show up, who help carry the load, who remind you that you matter. You get shared joy that amplifies positive experiences. Good things feel better when you can share them with people who genuinely care. You get feedback and perspective that helps you grow. People who know you can point out your blind spots, challenge your thinking, help you evolve. You get a sense of belonging without losing independence. You're part of something larger than yourself, but you're still yourself. You get resilience that comes from community, not just personal strength. When you fall, there are people to help you back up. There's actually research on this. You know about blue zones? These are regions where people live significantly longer than average. Researchers have studied these places extensively, trying to figure out what they're doing right. And one of the key factors? Strong community connections. People in blue zones have deep, meaningful relationships. They're interdependent, not isolated, and it literally adds years to their lives. All right, this all sounds good in theory, but how do you actually do it? How do you start letting people in when every fiber of your being says stay safe, stay closed? That's what we're covering now. I'm going to give you specific, practical steps you can take immediately. No vague advice. Real, actionable techniques to start changing this pattern today. Step 1. Start with self-awareness. Before you can change a pattern, you need to see it clearly. For the next week, I want you to keep track of when you shut people out. Carry a small notebook or use your phone. Every time someone offers help, every time someone tries to get closer, every time you feel the impulse to close off, write it down. Notice what thoughts come up. What does your mind tell you in those moments? I don't want to burden them. I should handle this myself. If I show weakness, they'll think less of me. Whatever the thoughts are, write them down. Notice your physical sensations. What do you feel the discomfort in your body when someone tries to get close? Chest, stomach, throat? Your body holds information about your patterns. This isn't about judging yourself. It's about collecting data. You can't change what you can't see. So spend a week just observing your patterns without trying to change them yet. Step 2. Challenge your catastrophic thinking. After you spend a week observing your patterns, you'll have a list of thoughts that arise when you feel vulnerable. Now we're going to challenge them using REBT techniques. Take one thought. Let's say it's if I ask for help, they'll see me as weak. Now ask yourself, what's the evidence for this belief? Has every single person who asked you for help seemed weak to you? Probably not. So why would you seem weak to them? Ask yourself, what's the worst that could actually happen if this belief were true? Let's say they do see you as weak. Then what? They lose respect for you? They distance themselves? Okay, could you handle that outcome? Yes. It wouldn't feel good, but you could handle it. Now ask, what's the best that could happen? They might appreciate your honesty. They might feel closer to you. They might respect you more for being human instead of pretending to be invincible. Finally, ask, what's most likely to happen? Most likely, they'll respond positively and your relationship will deepen. Because that's what usually happens when people are vulnerable with each other. Do this exercise for each of your major fears about vulnerability. Write it out. Actually, write it out. Don't just think about it. The act of writing makes you process it more deeply. Step 3. Start small with low-stakes vulnerability. Don't jump straight to sharing your deepest trauma with someone you barely know. That's not courage. That's self-sabotage. We're building a muscle here, and you build muscles gradually. Start with tiny risks in safe relationships. Here's what I mean. Next time a friend asks how you are, instead of automatically saying, fine, try saying something actually true. Honestly, I'm a bit stressed about work. That's it. See what happens. Probably they'll respond with empathy or curiosity, and the world won't end. Ask for a small favor. If you're trying to fix something and you're struggling, ask a friend if they have any ideas. Let someone help you carry groceries. Accept when someone offers to drive you somewhere instead of insisting you'll take care of it yourself. Share a minor feeling without over-explaining it. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed today. You don't need to justify it or explain it or apologize for it. Just state it and see how it feels to let that truth exist in the space between you and another person. These might seem trivial, but they're not. You're training your nervous system that vulnerability doesn't equal death. You're giving your brain new data. I opened up a little and I survived. In fact, I felt more connected. Step 4. Create a vulnerability exposure hierarchy. This is a technique from anxiety treatment, but it works perfectly here. Make a list of vulnerable actions ranked from least scary to most scary on a scale of 1 to 10. Here's an example. Level 1 might be, tell someone you're tired or having a rough day. Level 3 might be, ask someone for advice on an actual problem you're facing. Level 5 might be, share a fear or insecurity with a trusted person. Level 7 might be, ask for help with something significant, like a work project or a personal crisis. Level 10 might be, share your deepest feelings or most painful experiences. Your list will be personal to you. What's a 3 for someone else might be a 7 for you. That's fine. Make your own scale, then work through it gradually. Start at level 1. Do that several times until it feels manageable. Then move to level 2. Don't skip steps. Don't try to jump from 1 to 10. Your nervous system needs time to adjust. And here's the key. You might feel anxious when you do these things. That's expected. Anxiety is not a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that you're doing something new. Don't let anxiety stop you. Do it scared. Do it anxious. Just do it. Step 5. Set boundaries while being open. This is crucial. Opening up doesn't mean having no limits. You can be vulnerable and still protect yourself. In fact, boundaries make vulnerability sustainable. You get to decide what you're comfortable sharing and with whom. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. That's not being closed off. That's being discerning. It's okay to say, I'm not ready to talk about that yet. It's okay to say, I appreciate you asking, but I'd rather not discuss that right now. You can be open about some things and private about others. That's healthy. The goal is not to become an open book to everyone. The goal is to stop being a closed book to everyone. There's a big difference. Think of it this way. In extreme independence, nobody gets in. In interdependence, some people get in to varying degrees based on trust and safety. You're not dismantling all your walls. You're building doors, and you control who you give keys to. Step 6. Notice and appreciate the connection. When someone responds positively to your vulnerability, let it land. Don't immediately deflect or minimize or change the subject. This is hard for people who are used to being closed off. Someone shows you kindness, and your immediate instinct is to move past it as quickly as possible. Resist that instinct. Sit with it for a moment. Allow yourself to actually feel the connection. Let yourself notice that this person cared enough to respond with warmth. Let yourself appreciate that you were brave enough to be vulnerable and it went well. This step is crucial because it rewires your brain. Right now, your brain associates vulnerability with danger. Every time you're vulnerable and it goes well, you're creating new neural pathways. You're teaching your brain vulnerability can lead to connection, not just pain. But this only works if you actually pause and notice the positive outcome. If someone says, "Thanks for sharing that with me," don't say "it's no big deal" and change the subject. Say, "Thanks for listening," and let the moment exist. Let the connection be real, even if it's uncomfortable. Step 7. Commit to tolerating discomfort. This is probably the most important step, so listen carefully. This process will feel uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. Your anxiety is going to spike. Your brain is going to scream at you that you're in danger. You're going to want to retreat back behind your walls after the first time something doesn't go perfectly. But discomfort is not a sign that something's wrong. Discomfort is the price of change. Everything worth doing feels uncomfortable at first. You're changing patterns that have been in place for years, maybe decades. Of course, it's going to feel weird and scary. Here's what I need you to understand. Short-term discomfort for long-term connection. You can handle temporary anxiety if it means building relationships that actually fulfill you. You've been handling the pain of loneliness for years. You can handle the discomfort of vulnerability for a few months while your brain adjusts. The discomfort will decrease over time. I promise you that. As you practice vulnerability and see positive results, it will get easier. Your nervous system will calm down. It will start to feel normal instead of terrifying. But you have to push through the initial discomfort to get there. Your mantra for this process: I can tolerate discomfort in service of what matters. Say that to yourself when you feel the urge to retreat. Remind yourself why you